We're smart in other ways.
Exactly. Hey, you guys. Hello. Welcome to another week of Soul to Soul. I'm Joy Ross, and my co host here is.
Ame-Lia Tamburrini, nice to be here with you, Joy. It is, is it sunny where you are? Because it's sunny
It
here.
is actually. It is sunny, and for some reason, my fingertips feel like ice. So I am gripping this mug with hot tea in it just to warm up my fingertips. So that's what's happening over here. I don't even know what the temperature is out, but it is sunny. Um, it's a beautiful day, and I'm feeling sunny
Yeah, you
inside.
are.
So, you guys, we're coming in hot today. We are not rehearsed. We are never rehearsed on these
No.
things. We show up week to week and we just flow in the moment. And interestingly, and one of the things I love about you, Ame-Lia, is the divine connection that is definitely there with the two of us, because we cannot talk and show up here unrehearsed, unplanned, and every week. And I hope you guys feel this, right? Because we do these weekly lives, not just for us, but to bring you into the conversation as well. But I know every week it's a delight for me because there's always a surprise. And I'm always amazed at how uh, deeply connected we are spiritually, right? And like energetically. You'll say something, and I'm like, what? There's no way you would have known that I was having similar thoughts or dealing with similar things. And so I look forward to showing up just for the element of what is going to happen from week to week. So we don't know, you guys. And today we're coming in hot. Like literally, we just logged on like 2 minutes before it was time to come on the air. But this is a joy for me. I love these weekly conversations that we have. I love, Ame-Lia, that we were intentional when we started doing this about, hey, let's be the change that we want to see in the world. And we were so frustrated and so not feeling good about what we were seeing when we looked out in the world and seeing that people were ostracized and people were going to their own respective corners and fighting and arguing and just digging down and not being able to really talk and accept that it is totally okay if somebody thinks differently. It is totally okay if somebody has a different perspective. And how about just being able to talk about those things, right? And navigate those conversations. And maybe, who knows, we might just all learn something when we allow ourselves to just come into a space with curiosity. And so that's what we are doing here every week. This is not a monologue between the two of us. We want this to be a dialogue. So, you guys, we don't even know what topics we're going to get into today, but whatever topics might arise, I just want to invite you. If you're watching this, you're watching the replay, if you're hopping in live, to listen and then share with us what are your thoughts on the various topics that might arise today. That's my opening.
So great.
What's
I love how
my-
it pours from you, from your heart, and whatever is there comes out. And what I want to add to that, which you usually add, but is present for me, it was present for me in the couple minutes we had before we went live, is joy and laughter and enjoyment. And I think that's also what we want to be as a part of your day, is a little source of joy, because we both love it. We both know how much joy energizes us, energizes the work that we do in the world. It energizes our relationships. It energizes our relationship with spirit. It energizes our relationships with ourselves. And that I think in all the seriousness of the conflict and people not knowing how to really show up when there's differences of conversations, we forget that sometimes in those moments, it's about relaxing a little bit and
Mm.
potentially seeking out what is the joy? What can we be grateful for in this moment? Like you, when you came on, I think, just talking about your mug and you're warming up your fingertips. And I thought, oh, how cool is it that you have this hot beverage that you can do that with? That's like my heart filled with gratitude and joy for you that you have that for yourself, because I know how good that feels to warm up your fingers. Simple things. Yeah.
Yes. Oh man. Okay, so I would um be remiss. Is that what I want to say? Yeah, if I didn't, speaking of this mug, as I look at it, can you guys see it says you are inspiring on that side? And then on this other side, it's just a bunch of awesome affirmations, beautiful words. And on the inside of the cup, it says unique, talented, marvelous. A friend of mine gave this to me. So I just want to acknowledge her and Kiami Robinson. I'm going to just shout you out if you happen to even see this. I don't even know if you watch these lives, but thank you for this mug. Every time I'm using it, I think about you, and I love it. And it's an example of how a little thing can make a huge difference and bring joy into the environment. I love that you threw out that word, joy, because you're so right. Joy does make a difference. And we can create that within ourselves, even in environments. And I love that you said sometimes we forget that we can just like take a breath and like, cultivate joy. I'm paraphrasing what you said. That was how I heard it.
Mhm.
And it reminded me of a meeting that I was in with clients yesterday. And these are people in senior leadership positions. And what they do, like very super smart, super like professional people coming together to solve. And I'm doing that in jest, but seriously, it's good work because they're coming together to solve some pretty serious problems, pretty serious issues that are impacting the lives of Black and Brown people in communities, right? And that's good work and it's important work. But these are like a lot of scientists and very like, you know, intellectually astute people. And as the facilitator, one of the facilitators of the meeting, I was like, you know what? Let's shake this up a little bit. And let's just create a little bit of joy. Let's shift the energy in the room just a little bit as we kick off this meeting. And you know this, Ame-Lia, because you and I are in some groups together. And so we're used to like starting out meetings, asking people to share, like, what are you celebrating today? And then, like in a professional setting, when you throw something like that unexpectedly to people and you add, it can be something pertaining to work or it can be something personal, like with a group of people who are they work together, but they don't necessarily share their personal lives. Um, can be a little disruptive.
Yeah.
It can be a little scary. And so I did that and walked them through that exercise. And it was amazing that after a pause, and I was like, okay, I'm going to let this silence be, right? And that's like another thing, being okay with silence. I'm just going to let the silence be as they figure out what they want to share. It was amazing how once things got going, people started sharing personal things that brought them joy. Like one person was super excited that they hadn't been invited to speak at a school, with kids and like talk about their career. And Somebody was like, "Hey, I'm celebrating that I have this personal goal to read so many books." Had nothing to do with work, right? And I'm on my fourth one for the year, and I've surpassed my goal. And just seeing them step outside of their comfort zone just a little bit, and seeing how everybody else in the room celebrated them, that brought me, I was so elated. They probably all thought I was crazy because everything everybody said, I was like, "Woo-hoo!" Like, I was so animated and like, "Yeah." I love that. And I really, with each person sharing, I literally felt just filled
Mm,
up. I was so excited for these people, and I don't even really know them, on a personal level. This is a new project, but just the joy that brought me to be able to celebrate them and to see them having ahas like, "Oh, like, is it okay to share this?" And then doing it, it was an energy that's almost, inexplicable, right? But it was so good.
mhm,
And just a little that little thing, how joy really does shift the atmosphere. And
mm.
I was like, "Hey, I wanna start off every meeting like that. Like, let's intentionally infuse some joy into the environment." That's powerful, powerful stuff.
Yeah. I love that story. I'm so glad you did that, and yay, like, what an impact that was left with those folks, 'cause that meeting that was a very serious meeting became, a moment of happiness and joy in their life, and that high vibe energy just infuses everything that comes after that. So the creativity is amplified when we can tap into those higher vibrational states, which means whatever was produced after that was even more aligned with a bigger mission, with oh, I'm just I'm thrilled. So way to do that.
So it's Wednesday.
That's
Let's celebrate me for that. I'm
yeah,
celebrating myself for taking that courageous act. Because even for me to do that with this group of people who aren't used to, starting meetings that way, like usually they're used to, okay, like this is serious, let's get
yeah.
down to business. So I celebrate myself for being true to me in that moment and taking the risk, knowing that they could have been like,
Oh, yeah.
like, no, what is who hired her? And this is not, okay, no, like never again have her, start our meetings. It could have gone that way. I knew it wouldn't though, because we're all human. And no matter what hat we wear or what we're doing in the world, joy it just feels good.
Yeah. It feels good, and I just wanna add in that sometimes I feel like there's a protective mechanism within us that prevents that joy from coming through or being in the room because it's sort of like, well, that doesn't feel safe for whatever reason. Um, and and often we kinda have these stories too about what work means, what being productive means, and often that doesn't include or allow for things like fun and joy and rest and quiet time to be part of that. It's something I'm really focused on right now as I create this leadership program for people where we're coming together and really looking at how has colonization and how does colonization impact how we show up in our day-to-day change making roles? And so it's like drawing the awareness to like, what's our relationship with our body? What's our relationship with others? What's our relationship with ourselves? And how is that still today being shaped by this um, these colonial ways of being that really push forward agendas of separation and competition and individualism and exclusiveness. And even
Mhm.
the best-hearted people out there, even you and I, these ways of being are in our body. And so if we're
Yeah.
not bringing awareness to them, they just kind of perpetuate out there into the world and in how we be with ourselves, how we be with others, and how we create change. So I love that this topic of joy is coming up today because that's such a big part of it. Because I don't
Mhm.
think it was meant to be so serious all the time. And I
Mhm.
see this a lot in one of the exercises I love to do with people, especially in really tricky situations that are they're kind of going down this path as an organization or as a community where it's pretty predictable that the outcome is just going to be much of the same. And
Mm.
so we sort of do this activity where we lay that out on the table. Like if we keep going in this way,
Yes.
what's the predictable outcome here? But then the powerful moment is when we say, okay, and how are you contributing to this? How are you showing up that is creating this predictable outcome? And at first people are like, what? Like, I don't think so. Like, I'm not contributing, or there's that the defensive, that protectiveness mechanism comes up. But then there's some brave souls that just start to say, well, every time Jim comes to my office, like I kind of, I kind of don't, I ignore him or I ignore his ideas because of whatever reason, or I start to say these sorts of things, or, every time my um whatever says something, I get super defensive and I just push them away. But as people start to express how they're really showing up in these situations, it becomes hilarious. Becomes hilarious because you've normalized it and everyone's like, "Oh, I'm not alone in these weird ways that I show up to kind of be protective." And then you really start to see how you're being, and it actually is quite funny sometimes because we behave kind of ridiculously.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
again, anyways, it's like that whole conversation of joy can come into these difficult situations as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And so here it is. You didn't even know. I don't think I even said what the nature of the work was, but absolutely what they are tackling, what they have been called to do on this committee is going to require them to do so many things that they have never done before, including work collaboratively across departmental boundaries. So their whole culture and way of working up until this point has been different from what they are going to have to do in order to produce the outcome, right? That they've been tasked with. And um, so part of me having them do that exercise, which I did share with them on the back end of it, is yeah, I figured, and I knew just knowing human behavior, that probably was uncomfortable if not but for the first few seconds,
Mm.
for many people in the room, if not everybody in the room. And that's a common human experience because when we're going into something that's different from what we've done before, it's disruptive. We don't like it, right? We just don't. Our brains don't like it. We can freeze up. We get tense, like, oh, wait, what is about to happen? Um, and not only is that normal, but being able to acknowledge that and then lean into it is what is absolutely required for change and for breakthrough. So I think after that meeting, I'm like, you know what? I think the next few meetings, I'm going to kick off the same way because we have to develop that muscle
Mm.
of, ooh, this feels uncomfortable, but because I'm committed to an outcome on the other side of this, let me get my mind shifted and like press in because
Mm,
there's something good that's on the other side. Kind of like when we go to work out. If you've never worked out before in your life and you decide, "Ooh, I want to get in shape. I want to tone up." Okay, well, guess what? Those first few weeks, maybe even those first few months of going to the gym, or like if you're working with a trainer, they will have you doing things that are going to hurt. You won't want to do them. Your muscles aren't developed, so it's not going to feel good, but you do it because you know that this is going to get you to a place in the future where you want to be. Okay, at the end of this, my arms are going to be toned, or at the end of this, I'll be able to run that half marathon, or whatever it is,
mm.
or I'll drop the weight. So discomfort is not a bad thing.
No, I mean, I think it is necessary, as you say, required. If what you're just saying feeds into this, material I was absorbing. I was geeking out on the brain this morning, which I
Mhm,
love to do
mhm.
sometimes. And the person I was speaking to, or not speaking to, the person I was listening to, was talking about our fast acting brain and our slow acting brain. And um, these habits that we have, habits are really just programmed in the fast acting brain, like we're just doing it automatically. So that could even be, I show up to a meeting and I'm serious. I, um, my partner walks in the room and I get judgmental or whatever, like, you know, the
Never for some
the
reason cracks me up, because to your point about how ridiculous and funny we are,
yeah.
like, what? Yeah, we do
We
that.
do. We do. So his the brilliance of this was that he said, all we need to do to start rewiring this is to disrupt, as you were saying, disrupt that pattern for like 2 minutes. So
Mhm,
he was using the example of procrastinate or not procrastination, like say worrying. You get
mhm.
worried, and then for me, sometimes when I get really worried, I procrastinate. Like, I'll just put things off. Um, so he said, all you have to do is disrupt, and for just 2 minutes, do something different that is not the thing you usually do. So your partner walks in the room, you have to draw awareness to it, or
Mhm.
let's use the meeting because that's the topic we're talking about. So you show up to a meeting and you just find you're really serious. If you when you notice that, it's just like disrupt it for 2 minutes. So maybe that is, yeah, having the circle that you led, which is, sharing about what you're celebrating. In that moment, you are actually disrupting a pattern, a habit, the fast thinking brain that says,
Mhm.
I need to just show up and get right to business when I come to a meeting. And even if after that exercise, you went right back to the agenda and ticking off the boxes and all of that stuff, it doesn't matter because you're already starting to reprogram your fast acting brain so that when you show up
Mhm.
to a meeting, you're less inclined to jump right into um, the logistical pieces of the meeting, the serious pieces of the meeting. And that's a
Yeah, I
beautiful
love
way
it.
to build relationship. Anyways, I think I jumped around to a couple different examples, but, it was really cool, and I like that I'm now seeing what he was sharing in your example.
Mhm, and you know what too? That's brilliant, um, his point, and I love about that. Here we are. How many times have I used the word love today? We were talking about love, right, last time, I think.
Mhm.
I love that the emphasis there, and the main point, at least what I take away from that, is the power of a micro
Mm.
shift.
Yes.
Do something different just for 2 minutes. Start a meeting differently by doing one thing, and even if you only spend 2 to 4 minutes on that thing, you've it's shifted something. I
Yep.
love that, right? Because the power we have to make a difference in how we show up, the power we have to change dynamics. Because, like, back to that workplace thing, right? I think we've all experienced those of us who've ever worked in an office setting, we've all probably experienced walking into a meeting and that weirdness. Sometimes it's just like a weird something in the environment, and you find yourself either tensing up or feeling nervous about talking. Like, what is that? You know? Um, and we can disrupt that. And I
Mhm.
think even not even, I think especially when doing things that are difficult. So, like back to my example of this group of clients, what they've been tasked with is no small feat, and it is challenging and it can be heavy. It can be like depressing. It can be because of the massiveness of it.
Mm.
You can feel like, oh, like, will we ever really be able to do this? Because it's such a heavy lift.
Mm.
So, to me, because of that, even more the reason to shift, shift the energy, get people in a positive space, because you're going to need that to
Yeah.
do the hard work ahead.
Oh,
So,
totally. Yeah. It's so important. It's so important. Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of brings me to small steps, which was on my brain this morning because, in a totally different example, I'm training for a 10K run, and I used to be a competitive athlete, so this is like a kind of a big deal for me to come back into like this racing world, but do it with love and joy and no pressure and just for the joy of it. Speaking of joy. And so I used to run quite fast times, and that was a really long time ago. And then, the cancer and all of the things, and I really haven't run seriously or long
mhm.
for a long time. So, I started training a month ago, and it's in 2 months from now. So I wanted to give myself a long runway because I didn't wanna ramp up
Mhm.
and get injured. And I ran a 5K this morning, and a month ago, this 5K, I had run it, but it was like 7 minutes slower. And so for a 5K time, that's actually quite substantial. And I just marveled this morning when I looked at the clock and I thought, "Oh, that's cool," because it happened without me noticing. It was getting consistent in my calendar, gradual increases, taking rest when I needed to, and really finding enjoyment when I went out the door. And a month later, here I am just, running quicker. And it just happened because of the small steps. So if I had leaped from back then to try to take 7 minutes off my time, I would have failed and I would have gotten injured. And this is, I think, the same thing when we are doing big systemic changes, like what you're speaking of. It can get so overwhelming when we think about that end goal and be like, oh my gosh, that is a mountain. How the heck are we ever
Mhm.
going to get there? And especially because this journey is often like it's one step forward, two steps back, one step forward, two steps back.
Mhm.
It can get really frustrating, but over time, the trajectory is heading us toward our goal. So I don't know if that's helpful for whoever's listening right now. If you have something that you're working toward, or you're on a big community project like the one Joy is speaking of, or you're just kind of overwhelmed at the state of the world right now and being like, what the heck, this is never going to change. Know that it is these small steps, the
Mhm.
small interactions with people that will get us to where we're headed. Um,
So many things about what you just said that I loved. I'm going to start with, because it is Wednesday and we're all about celebrating. I want to
yeah.
celebrate you for setting this goal to run a 10K and noticing your own incremental progress. Like, seriously, yay. Because I know what that's like. I used to run too. I haven't in a long time. But that's something that's like an accomplishment. So I'm excited for you.
Thanks.
And that piece that you mentioned about slowing down, I just want to drill down on that just for a minute
Mhm.
for somebody who might be listening who, like me, um, needs that message to be on repeat, right? The importance of giving ourselves permission and the freedom to pause when we need to pause is
Mm.
so important. And it's so synced up with allowing ourselves to be us, to be our authentic selves and not try to conform with a version of us that's either in our head because we put it there, because of looking out and comparing ourselves to others, or a version of us that's in our heads because of what society has put on us in terms of shoulds, right? Um, there is power in the pause.
Mm.
And sometimes, especially in change process, in transformation, like you said, transformation doesn't happen overnight. Change does not happen overnight. It just doesn't. It happens over time in a series of micro shifts that often we don't even recognize. And then literally we wake up one day like you went out to do the run and it on that day it's like, what, I beat my time by 7 minutes. That's how it happens. Like literally one day we notice, but it seems like all of a sudden, but it's not all of a sudden. And giving ourselves freedom to go with the waves, because there are waves. So
Yeah.
if on one day you're feeling like gangbusters, all in, go with that. But if the next day you're feeling like, oh, wait, something's like slow down or take a pause, do that. Because it's in those moments too that a lot of times we'll get an aha or a
Mm.
revelation or something, a word, a download that we wouldn't have gotten if we didn't allow ourselves to pause and be okay in the pause. Even if everybody else, it's like the what is that? The turtle and the rabbit, right? In the
Mhm.
race. Don't be concerned if it looks like, oh, but wait, everybody else is going so fast. Eh, you run your own race. Walk it sometimes if you have to walk it. If you feel like jogging, jog. But then if it's not going to be like somebody else's race, but keep at your pace and you get to the finish line and change, you will be different.
Mm.
Change will have occurred. That's how we win in life, in our own journey, because we're not in a journey to win a race against other people. We're running our own life course, and only we and God know truly what that needs to look like and where that needs to go.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful. I got full body shivers with that wisdom right there. Love it. It's a beautiful place, I think, to wrap up this conversation, which has been a glorious delight and surprise. I'm glad we went where we went. And thanks for sharing the story about the great work that you're doing. I'm cheering you and all of them on in, yeah, what you're all up to. It's so needed. Yeah.
yeah, thank you for sharing about that book. Do you want to bless us with the title? There might be people who want to read that book. I don't
The
want to put you on the spot.
It actually wasn't a book, it was, a training, just one of the videos from this training that I'm doing with, Mike Dooley on, infinite possibilities. So, again,
Mm.
taking those practices when we're in that negative thought pattern of, "Oh, I don't have the money, I don't have the relationship, I don't have the whatever," and pausing in those moments and, like, walking away, brushing your teeth, doing the laundry, washing your face, whatever you need to do to just disrupt the thought, and then come back and see where you've landed now, and is there a space now for a different kind of thought to be planted in your head, instead of continuing down the rabbit hole of really buying into what you can see and taking that as reality.
Love.
Yeah.
All right, folks.
Okay.
So let us know how any of this, how all of it resonated with you, what landed for you, or what didn't. What caused you, what did you hear that made you like maybe adversely react? What were
Mm,
you resistant to? Any and all the above. We want to know. We want to hear from you guys. So let us know.
awesome. Absolutely. Yes. All right. Same time, same channel next week.
That's right. Until next week, love and peace.
Okay. Ciao.